Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm not sure I should put my back to these people over here, but I will for a moment. So I'm Gary Packard. I'm the Dean of the College of Applied Science and Technology at the University of Arizona, and I'll be moderating a team of Team Cyber panel for us today. But before we start, I want to first of all welcome you to the Wonder House from the University of Arizona. Hope you're having a great time here in Austin at South by Southwest. And what we're here to talk about a little bit is how cybersecurity is really a team effort. And that includes not only these great, smart people that are sitting behind me, who I'll let them introduce themselves in a minute, but it includes all of you. This is really a story about all of us. So to get us started, I want to know, if you have your cell phone, can you pull it out for me, please? I know you have one, so don't pretend like you don't, because everybody has a cell phone. Otherwise, how would you have navigated to get to this room in the first place, right? I mean, that's how you get around South by Southwest, is you get your phone out. Now, I'm going to give you some instructions, but I don't want you to do them until I say go. Everybody got it? So here's what you're going to do. Anybody take pictures here while you're at South by Southwest on your phone? Raise your hand if you've got a picture or two on there. Or maybe you got a picture of a pet or a family member or somebody that you really, are very fond of. I want you to share that with your neighbor when I tell you to, by, holding your phone out, putting your little code in there, whatever, and then let them see your picture. You ready? 1, 2, no, don't do that. I really don't want you to do that. I'm pulling your leg. Please put your phones back in your pocket. Don't do that. Here's why I set you up for that, because how many of you might have maybe, had 1 or 2 drinks, went to a bar last night, maybe got one while you're walking around, you had your phone out, somebody texted you, you opened it up. Were you paying attention to who was around you watching you do that? One of the biggest criminal activity going on with this phone right now, especially if on an iPhone, which is what I have here, is people watching you over your shoulder and watching you put that 4-digit, 6-digit code in your phone. And if you've had a few drinks, you're much more susceptible to this, right? You set that phone up on the bar, just because you got done texting somebody, and they're going to pull that phone off. If they know your code, they can get to your bank account through Apple Pay. They can get to your Venmo account. They can get to everything that's on this phone, and they can change that code the minute they walk out the door, so you can't get in there to stop them. That's cybersecurity. That's why this is a team of teams, and we all need to be involved. So behind me are people from education, people from industry, people from state and federal government, because all of them are working to help us create the right technologies, the right training, the right environments, the right policy and law, but most importantly, the right culture about cybersecurity. So let me turn them over to this group and let them introduce themselves. Chris, I'm going to start with you since you're closest. So there you go. So go ahead, please.
I was told I was within smacking distance. That's why I'm sitting here. My name's Chris Hadnagy. I'm the CEO of Social Engineer LLC, a private company that works with government agencies and large corporations in the human side of security. So we actually practice things like phishing, vishing, voice phishing, smishing, and impersonation. The easiest way to describe it is, have you ever seen the movie Sneakers? That's my job. So I get paid to break into banks and government facilities and things like that physically, like going and actually doing it.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Tim Roemer. I'm the president and general manager of ThriveDX. I've been in the role for only a couple months now. Prior to joining ThriveDX, I was the director of the Arizona Department of Homeland Security and the head of cybersecurity for the state of Arizona. So 18 years of government experience, and now I'm in the private sector for the first time, and specializing in cyber education, training, phishing tools, and cyber awareness training as well. So thank you for being here.
Hi, I'm Nancy Rainosek. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer for the state of Texas. I've been with the state actually for years. So Texas is federated. We have about 180 agencies and universities that kind of report to us. But basically we set strategy and then offer services to those agencies. And now we're trying to do more outreach to local government and the private sector and the citizens.
Thanks, Nancy. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Colonel Josh Rockhill. Some people call me Rocky. We have nicknames in the military. I'll take either. Right now, I'm the Director of Operations for something called 16th Air Force. For those foreign to that, essentially it's all things Air Force's cyber. So if we're doing it in cyberspace, 16th Air Force and the Air Force is doing it, 16th Air Force is headquarters, and I'm the Director of Operations for that. I also do other things in the information warfare spectrum, electronic warfare, ISR, and on it goes, but today we'll focus on the cyber aspect. Before this job, I was a group commander, what we call a group commander, which is basically had the pleasure of leading 1,000 or so airmen driving security operations every day. So in a commercial sense, or academic sense, basically our lead SOC was one of the missions inside of that portfolio. Happy to be here today.
For those of you who didn't meet me at the last talk, I'm Jason Denno. I am the Executive Director of the Cyber Convergence Center at the University of Arizona. Before that, I was the Department Head for Cyber Intel and Information Operations and created the Cyber and Intel and Information Operations in our Cyber Virtual Learning Environment, Cyberapolis, at the University of Arizona. And I work for Gary, so I'm as far away from smacking as possible.
Yeah, I'll get to him later. I know where he lives. But how about I give it up for our panel? It's a great group of people. Thank you for giving your time up today. So here's the way we want to work this. We want some crowd interaction. So I've got a handful of questions I've teed up for them that I'm going to go ahead and ask them to kind of get us started with this. But I want you to be thinking about your questions. No question is too simple. No question, don't feel, oh, I don't want to sound ignorant. Trust me, you're in good company if you're in the room and you're in cyber and you don't know what's going on your phone. You're probably sitting to someone who's in the same boat you are. So ask the questions. That's how we get this better. So let me start with this. I think all of us, I can say on this stage, are not digital natives. We had some digital natives in our last class, our last presentation, where if you grew up with a cell phone in your hand, right, or a computer on your desktop, and you've never known a world without it, then you're a digital native. That's not most of us. And I don't think that's any of us. Don't want to age anybody up here, but I think that's probably a fairly safe thing. I know for me, cybersecurity was not even a thing when I was thinking about what I wanted to do when I grew up. I told everybody at the last session I wanted to be a pilot, and so I joined the Air Force to go fly airplanes. I didn't really catch the cybersecurity bug until I started working at an institute at the Air Force Academy, and then really caught it coming down and working with this college in cybersecurity. So here's my question for the panel. How did you get started in cybersecurity? And what motivates you to do what you do? Chris, you started out first time, so I'm going to throw this one to Tim and get us starting on this one. So Tim, how'd you get here, and what keeps you here?
So it was about 2012, and I was really fortunate. I was a CIA officer stationed in the White House Situation Room, and this was a time when nation states were going after U.S. financial institutions with DDoS attacks, these distributed denial of service attacks. When that happened, and every analyst working in the White House had to be briefed on cybersecurity, understanding the importance and the red lines in order to figure out when to wake up the president, vice president, national security advisors, that was a huge eye-opening experience for me because I thought I was going to spend my entire career in counterterrorism. I joined CIA and was recruited to CIA a couple years after 9/11, and I thought my whole career was going to be counterterrorism. And then 2012, I got this first briefing by the National Security Council on cybersecurity, and I thought, oh my God, this is the future of our national security, homeland security, and public safety, because I understood right then and there that we could be attacked by anyone from anywhere around the world, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And that's why I stayed, is because the adrenaline rush of cybersecurity and the importance and the evolving of the cyber attacks, it's never been more important, so that's where I've remained focused.
Thank you. Nancy?
So I took a job as an IT auditor when I got out of school, and I actually hated it because here I was, young whippersnapper telling these people that had had these jobs for 20, 30 years what they're doing wrong. But it kind of got me having the knowledge of the controls and all the things that you have to do when you run an IT shop. So later on, I went to work for another agency, and the head of cybersecurity quit, and they were having a hiring freeze, and they had to hire internally, and so guess who got the job? And so that kind of started me on that path. And it was interesting. This was a pretty big place. And when I started, we found out that they didn't even have a firewall. And so that was my first big project, was putting in a border perimeter on a very large organization that needed it. And once you get that, when you kind of get that feeling of helping people that because of the information that we had at our disposal, and you're really protecting that citizen information, it just turned into a passion for me.
Thank you. Rocky?
Yeah, it's hard to follow these. I look forward to going first next time. But, I think journey for me started in the early 90s. I was a Cold War child. I wanted to take it to the Soviet Union. I joined the military. I wanted to jump out of airplanes and do things like that, but somehow or another they needed computer people, and I scored on some tests, and next thing you know, I went that way. I didn't really understand what I was getting into. Some 10 odd years later, I was given a chance to become an officer, and we can talk afterwards if you're not sure what that means, but and I didn't want to do this. I wanted to fly airplanes, and I found out that I don't see colors very well, and so can't fly airplanes because you're going to crash them. But you can work on computers, which is a whole fascinating line of thinking if you really think about it, right? The colors involved there too. And that sent me in this direction. But really, I was an IT worker. I provided and enabled IT for the first 20 years of my life. Yes, we do that in battlefields. Yes, we do it in different places in the military. But most are very common to anything you'd expect. It was in around 2008 that the military was grappling with what is cyber as a domain? What do we do to compete there and defend the nation there and protect its interests there? And I was put on a team because I spoke computer. I was put on a team to define what that meant in something called the Unified Command Plan that actually structures our organization at a DoD level. And ever since, I've been sort of in this sector accordingly. Why I still do it is the same reason I keep serving. I'm serving now for 30 years because I love it. We love what we do. It's not easy, but I love knowing that we're doing things when people are asleep, that to let them keep sleeping, and I'm honored to keep doing that, and that's why I enjoy it today.
Great.
Jason?
Well, I actually did jump out of those airplanes, and be lucky you didn't, because after I broke my spine for the third time, they wouldn't let me do that anymore. But they made me an offensive signals intelligence officer, which is what we call offensive cyber today. But I'm a Cold War baby too, and essentially I ran a government lab and I built cyber and intel systems after I moved into the civilian world. And moving into the civilian world beyond the government in industry, the only thing I could really do to still give back to the government, because I wasn't physically able to jump out of airplanes anymore, was kind of fire packets in anger, right, at people around the world. So I went and did those sorts of things and built those kind of systems, but I quickly realized it doesn't matter how good I was going to be. If I could protect a company or take it to the enemy, I was too small and the problem's too big. So at one point I decided to come to the University of Arizona. Some will say I was tricked coming in here, but I'm really glad about that. And I've chose to build these programs to build generations of highly skilled professionals, to leave that behind. Because the day after I leave a company, they could get breached. And, it means nothing of everything I did up behind there. So now I want to leave 10, 20, 30 years of professionals behind.
Thank you. Chris?
Well, I'm not nearly as glamorous as this, but my career started, let's say, late 80s, early 90s. I was a phone phreaker. If you don't know what that term, that's people who figured out the frequencies of what a quarter sounds like when you're dropping it a payphone, so we can simulate those frequencies and make free calls. Don't arrest me, please.
Statute of limitations.
Yeah, my 2-month college successful career ended when I wrote something called a war dialer, and I shut down Sarasota County's phone system for a day, and that built in me a passion to understand technology. I wanted to do it. Quickly realized, well, not quickly, we're going on 10 years after that I really stink at coding things, but I was really good with people. So I started focusing on the psychological aspects of why people make decisions and how they make decisions and how we can exploit those decisions. And that led me to the path of writing a framework for social engineering, which was the first time that was ever kind of dissected. And jumping forward now 15 years, I've written 5 books on the topic. I've had the privilege of being in the Pentagon to debrief on social engineering, which was quite an experience. That's a whole nother story for another day. And Jason has used everything I ever wrote about to trick me into working for University of Arizona as an adjunct professor for social engineering, which just want to kind of mirror something that Jason said. It's my passion for it is the reason why I think I'm here today, because I quickly realized that in my growing up, I was able to do those things and not go to prison because there was no laws. Like when that happened, the cops came to the university and went, "Hey, who did that?" I went, "Oh, that was me. I was writing a program to test phone systems." And they went, "Hey, don't do that again. It was really annoying. The phone system shut down for a day." And I went, "Ooh, I'm sorry." And the dean, who wasn't as cool as Gary, was like, "Okay, you're out." So I had to quit school and go do other things, right? So nowadays, if someone does that, they're counted as a domestic terrorist. No kidding. So they get arrested as a domestic terrorist. So I wanted to find a place where we can teach the next generation these skills. And I've been approached by dozens of universities to teach my framework. And U of A was the only one to actually say yes to my really, really crazy requests, which is why they have such an amazing program, because someone like Jason actually gathered the talent from the community and let them do really crazy things to teach the next generation how to do this.
So there's 2 things to learn from this. One is there are all sorts of pathways to be a part of this team. So wherever you sit today, we've got pathways that we can get you on this team if this is something of interest to you. The other thing you need to know about Chris, and that's why he's sitting by me, so I keep a really close eye on him given his background. He is the one professor so far that I've had the public affairs group at the University of Arizona call me up and goes, "Does this guy work for you? And is he okay?" And I said, "Yes, he works for me, and don't touch him. Leave him exactly where he is because you want him on this team." So I'm glad you're here, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, so Nancy, I'm going to start with you in this one. I'm going to throw this away from us and out to our audience. So sitting out here in front of us are people from all walks of life. People who are running businesses, people who are in school, people who know cyber, people who said, "Cyber, what the heck is that? I'm going to show up and see what's going on in this room today." Or they just thought the drinks were better here or something. I don't know. But we like to say in our college that everyone lives in or transits through cyber. I can safely say none of us in this room showed up today without touching cyber in some way, shape, or form multiple times throughout today. This wouldn't have happened without that. So whether they're running their business, or they're working on their email, or they're helping their children with their homework, or they're navigating the streets of Austin to get to the next venue at South by Southwest, we're all a part of that cyber equation. So from your perspective and your role on this cyber team of teams, what is the most important tip you would offer to them to keep them cyber secure?
There's, that's such a loaded question because there's so many things. But I would say if it sounds too good to be true, it is not true. If it sounds too good to be true, it's not true. So if I don't know how many emails I get a day saying I won $500 gift card from Best Buy or that I've never been in their store.
Those are from Chris's company.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'll stop.
So don't let guys like Chris fool you.
That's good.
Thank you. Rocky?
Yeah, I think, I was going to lead with don't let Chris call you on the phone because apparently that feels bad. But sorry, I think I'm going to take a slightly different angle on this one just for a second. Persona development is probably really Chris's kind of area, social engineering. Where I get most concerned is do we understand the attack surface we're providing others when we engage, especially if you're working in the sector, because I will tell you the way to really get after it with all the technologies coming, zero trust, advanced cryptography, all of that, what I'm saying is the way to get after somebody and affect your business, your institution, your government, your state, your national, is through humans. That is the tool. Yes, the others are there. Yes, I can jiggle door locks, and yes, I can get in, but man, it's a lot easier if I'm riding on your badge. So how do you protect your attack surface? How do you defend yourself? Now, I'll say this to say, yes, people do make a lot of mistakes inside the institutions too. The other thing is taking a moment and kind of breathing through your nose when you're in the middle of a day, and if you're like me, you get hundreds of emails or hundreds of Slack channel inputs or whatever it may be, and you're just clicking. because you're just in that 1 hour between meetings. You just need to take a second, go back through sort of your checklist in your mind. Am I doing the right things? Let me triage this engagement. That gets to Nancy's point. But the first one I think gets lost. Protect your attack surface.
Jason?
I would say, I know it's supposed to be one thing, two things. The first is you've got to really look at passwords, right? Don't use the same password in the same place, because as soon as one gets breached, that goes in. A lot of penetration testers or bad guys will come after you, and the first thing they're going to look at, they're not going to fire some advanced zero-day exploit at you. They're just going to search you on the internet and check all your passwords that have been leaked. And they're going to try those first, because why would you break in if you can just walk in the front door, right? So when you have the same password everywhere in every place and something gets breached, you're pretty much done. And nobody here would ever have the same password anywhere, right? Of course not.
Sorry.
You know, it's and to follow that theme, right? 82% in the Verizon, breach incident report, or VDBIR, 82% of all the big breaches had a human element to it. The human's the weak link, right? And that's why because as soon as you're compromised, you're behind all of those defenses. So when Chris gets you to click, doesn't matter what your firewall did, because he's already engaged you.
Okay, I'm going to give you an A and B. I think the thing I hear all the time from people is, I'm too small, I'm not that important, no one's going to care about me, I only have 23 bucks in my bank account. And that's the wrong kind of thinking for security purposes, because the adversary, if we look at nation-state adversaries, using your identity is a lot more valuable than what's in your bank account. They know if they steal your credit card, you're going to have a new one in a day and a half, and that one's going to be shut off there. That's not important. They may get a couple sales out of it. It doesn't hurt you at all. Your identity, though, is really, really valuable on the dark web. So don't look at yourself and say, I don't have a lot of money, I'm not famous, I'm not important. It doesn't work that way. And if you're sitting here as a CISO or a company owner, even though I agree with what Jason said, that humans are the biggest vulnerability in our company, we have to stop treating them as if they're the biggest problem. They're not. Where they're our biggest asset. The biggest problem is that we're not training them good enough to be secure in their thinking and having a security conscious culture.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm lucky because I took 18 years of government service, and now I'm the president and general manager of a cybersecurity company that specializes in protecting the human factor. But to answer the question specifically, I would say turn on multi-factor authentication. It's the one thing you can do right now. So Jason brings up people that reuse passwords, and it happens. Do not allow one password to be your vulnerability. If you simply turn on multi-factor or two-factor authentication on all your accounts, it restricts that now from somebody guessing your password, and it's going to send you that code, text message, or email to be able to validate it. That's one way that you can protect yourself, better. But the other way is to just stop putting so much personal information about yourself publicly out there. People will socially engineer, which means finding everything out about you to be able to get into your accounts. What they do is if they can't guess their password or your password, they're going to reset your password for you. So think about it like this. How many times have you all reset your password? I should say, how many people have reset a password this week or today, right? Because we're doing it so regularly. What hackers do is they go and they say, I'm not going to guess your password. I'm going to reset your password. How do they do that? They go in, as you've done, several of you recently, and they just have to answer your security questions. Most of your security questions, if you have a public Facebook page, are on your public Facebook page. You just don't realize it yet. It's your dog's name, it's the year you were born, it's the high school you went to. They spend 10 minutes on your Facebook page. They can probably reset your password for you. So be very cognizant about the information you put publicly about yourself out there. Turn on multi-factor authentication to protect yourself from it. And then lastly, stop clicking on links.
All right, so I'm going to dig a little bit here on a couple of things they said, but then I'm coming out to you. So be thinking about your questions because they're coming here really soon. Jason, you said don't use the same password every place. What should I do? Give me the positive side of that story. What are the safest practices for passwords?
So safe's an illusion. Let's just get that out on the table.
Safest, safer.
All right. So clearly, there's a couple different ways of looking at this, right? When you look at passwords and you want to have a different password and you say, oh my God, I can't remember 1,500 different passwords, right? Well, one of the things that we tell our students is think of a really long passphrase, because the strength of a password when they're going to crack it or guess it, the shorter that password, the worse it is, right? So the longer the password, like I like tacos on Tuesdays, 22 characters, really hard to crack actually. All right, that's not my password, by the way. But find a really good passphrase, something you can internalize, something that you know that's really defensible, and then use that for a password keeper, right? And then I can't agree more with multi-factor authentication, right? Have that turned on everywhere, because if they guess wrong, it alerts you, right, that somebody's doing that. But then, so you can either use a password keeper, and you say, well, okay, well, LastPass was compromised, and all the passwords were taken. That's why I say defense and safety is an illusion. More defensible and safer is probably the way to look at things, because you need to have that security posture all the time of looking at the fact that the world is evil, and you're in the middle of it, and they're not your friends. So they're going to try to hurt you, so you need to protect yourself. But that's one way of doing it, but the multi-factor authentication, the having tokens or plug-in dongles and things like that, depending on what kind of system you have. But don't make it easy for them.
Very good. It's good. It sounds like you're talking about, like, maybe I park on the streets of Austin. Maybe I should lock my card and not make it easy for somebody to open up and say, well, you know, don't put the phone on the dashboard where somebody can see it. But that kind of thinking.
Right. And
in
passwords
cyber
are just a minor piece of this entire puzzle. I think everybody here would agree it's so complex to have all the different layers of depth and zero trust and all the things that you want. But you got to start somewhere.
Yeah. So for anybody on here, I started a story with don't let people see your your passcode when you're at the bar, right? What should I do? If I want to show somebody a picture of my dog tonight because I'm sitting next to the bar, I kind of like him. I'd like to get to know him. How do I do that?
I'm just going to throw one thing out there.
Yeah.
I have a privacy screen on my phone, and it's not like a fail-safe. You know, like Jason said, okay, like there's no such thing as 100% security. But I'm amazed at how many, it's just a privacy screen, you know, get it Verizon, wherever your cell phone provider is, and just like a protector, it gives a shadow so that if you're not right in front of it, if you're at an angle, you can't see the screen. So here's the funny part about this. It is amazing to me how many people around me will say, oh my God, I can't see your screen. And one, I'm like, why are you looking at my screen? Like everybody's just admitting that we're constantly sitting around bars and restaurants and, you know, public transportation or anywhere else that you're at, and we're just looking at each other's phones or airplanes and things like that. A privacy screen is so great because it protects your screen. Many people already have a protection on there to protect your screen. Just get the one that's the privacy because it shades it. And yeah, I think I'm just throwing it out there. It's amazing that more people don't have privacy screens. I'm completely baffled by it.
So if I was really good entrepreneur, I'd have a privacy screenshot shop sitting right outside the door here. But
maybe University of Arizona.
You put the U of A logo on it. There you go. That'd be perfect.
Little privacy screen.
All right. Well, let me turn it out to you. What questions do you have for our panel? Yes, up front, and she'll bring you a microphone, right to your left.
Thank you. I just have a question about facial recognition and voice recognition. So I've been using facial recognition for a while, and I have a couple of either banks or credit cards that I'm interacting with, and when I call in, they want to force you down a path to do voice recognition versus like to even let you into your account. You know what I mean? So what are the challenges that we're facing there?
Move banks. Move banks. I mean, do not allow for that. There is so much AI technology out there to do deep fakes of voices that is so unbelievably good. If my bank did that, I would leave the bank, or I would say, do you have another path? Because I'm not doing voice authentication. Not unless there's a two-factor with it. Like they have to send you a code after your voice gets authenticated because they've done it for fun on YouTube channels where they can just deep fake someone's voice. It's too real now, and if that is the security, the only block to get into your money, that would not make me that would make me not sleep at night.
Well, if you don't want to sleep at night, Chris isn't wrong here, right? So Microsoft dropped out an AI, and it's in GitHub. You can just download it. If they capture 3 seconds of your voice, they can reproduce your voice so well that it takes a forensics expert to determine it's not you. 3 seconds. So 3 seconds of you talking and somebody's capturing that in the middle, you're done.
I want to add one more thing to that. You know these calls that we're all getting, where it calls and it's either jarbled or no one's there, and you're going, hello, hello, who is this? Hello. That's the 3 seconds they're grabbing so they can go do that for your voice. That's why. So, no, move banks. Leave the state. So facial recognition, so there's a difference. Like if we were talking 5 years ago when iPhone first came out with it, or Android, they were using like 9 points on the face and it was really weak. Now cell phones are using something like a 31-point system, which is quite strong. Like there were times where you can use a photo of somebody and unlock their phone. That is not happening anymore. I would have to know, if your bank is doing that, I would have to know how many points of relocation they're using on your face for me to say if it was secure or not. But if they're using current standards for facial recognition, it's 31 plus, which is really good. Like your twin, you know, your younger sibling, they're not going to work to unlock your account. Now, with that said, you know, it still makes me worried with deepfake technology. But deepfake technology would have to be printing a silicon mask, blah, 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 because they're not going to do it with a picture. It can't be a one-dimensional image to unlock facial recognition anymore because they're actually using depth perception as part of their facial recognition.
So is it safe to say, as soon as you talk 31-point facial recognition, right? As soon as a company comes out with a more secure way to secure my material, there is somebody on the other side that is starting immediately to figure out how to break that system. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, generally when new technology comes out, it's not secure because everyone wants to be first to market. So as soon as the new technology comes out, guaranteed, there's a whole group of people over there already studying it, analyzing it, reverse engineering it to figure out how to exploit it.
Right.
Yeah.
And Gary, if I can ask, so from the state perspective and from the DoD perspective, I know you guys have different networks and CAT cards and stuff, but is that what you use for the multi-factor authentication, or are you forcing policies for different type of?
Yeah, you want to go and answer?
Well, we don't use facial, and actually they passed a law where we can't hold biometrics of people for that reason. So that's not the way we do it. I mean, we're using send the code.
Yeah. You can't hold any biometrics? No fingerprints or anything?
Well, the cops can.
Okay, yeah.
But for
other
the most
state
part,
officers
no,
cannot.
they can't.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, most of the military, we have 2 factors. So something you have, something you know. So something you have is a card. It's an ID card. I have it in my wallet. You punch that in and you have a PIN. Now, we have a lot of networks, so it's not the same on every network. And there's different classifications of those networks. But that is the primary way. We're not using a lot of sort of facial recognition type features or thumbprints and the like. Just to go back briefly, I always stick to that. My wife had the same thing. She's like, hey, something I have, something I know is what you always said, which I was just like, oh my God, you've listened to me. Like 22 years together, there was one thing you remembered, right? But she did hear that. She did hear that. And she was like, one of my I was like, nope, don't do that. Just because then my follow-up would be when my bank calls and they ask me for, like, I know your phone number, so I know it's you, right? If I call them, that's great, but I want to hear the immediate authentication to something that only I can know. And if I miss that, I want to see, and I'll force fail it sometimes on purpose. Maybe that makes me a bit of a geek, but I want to see I want to see it work in person. I want to get the third call from their audit company or whatever that says, hey, sir, it sounds like somebody's trying to get into your account. I want that. I want to make sure those protocols are working. So I would say I agree with Chris. Back to your question.
Thank you. Did that answer your question? Thank you. Someone else up here?
Guys, good to see you. Nowadays, with technology being in everybody's hands and creativity with podcasts and everybody wants to make a website and kind of like a do-it-yourself item online, how do you feel about those new creative creators online being protected? Because a lot of them don't come with like cybersecurity experience and, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't come with like a do-it-yourself guide for cybersecurity.
I can talk. So 2 weeks ago, the federal government released a national cybersecurity strategy, and one of the main focuses of that strategy is to put the pressure on the vendor community that they build secure products, and that's something that we struggle with a lot is insecure products. And I think that this whole thing about cyber being, it's a team sport, and so that's the one thing that I can talk to is that, our vendor community needs to do a better job of producing secure products versus trying to produce things to be first to market.
Can I follow up on that, though? The other concern is, even if they give you a secure product, though, right? And I think Gary alluded to this either in this talk or the last one, and I don't want to go too technically here, but there's two different states. There's something called default allow and default deny. And default allow is, hey, you can do anything. If you want it protected, you got to close it. And default deny is, this device doesn't do anything. It doesn't work at all. And you've got to open it up to use it, right? Well, you ship it default allow because if it doesn't work, it just gets returned, right? So how do we get, and I'm wondering if, because I know that they do STIGs and things like that in the DoD, how do we go from a commercial product that might actually, Dell and Intel are doing some great work together on making it secure, but it's still shipped default allow. So how do we get it to where we can automatically, make security more transparent for the normal user?
If I'm also going to see if I can give you the challenge with your question and then maybe some of an answer. It's not going to be perfect. The challenge is social media has created an environment where you have to be first to something. Right? If you want to make money, you got to put content out daily or multiple times a day. You got to be edgy enough. People got to want to see your content. It's got to go viral, or you make nothing. So that creates an environment where if you want to do this for a living, if that's what you want to do, you just got to get out there and you got to do it, or you got to take the risk. Anytime you're doing that, security makes things more complicated, not less complicated, which means you're going to move slower to market, which means that most people aren't thinking that way. Although I agree with the comments, I think waiting for vendors to actually start producing secure equipment, we're going to be old and dead before that happens because they're in the market to make money, not to help you and me as consumers. They really don't care about us. And maybe if there's federal mandates, they'll be forced to do it, but they ship with the default allow all the time because they want to make money. So it's up to us really to take onus on it. And if you have this knowledge now to go to your friends, your family, your brothers, your sisters, your kids and say, okay, listen, we're going to start learning a little bit about cyber here because you need to be secure, right? I took that as my onus for my children that they had to know about password managers, two-factor authentication. Like they had to know about all these things before they can get technology. So that way they can be more secure. So we have to kind of take onus of that because vendors aren't going to do it for us. I'm sorry to blow you apart.
Just one simple thing, just quick to your question, because teammates have already kind of got all the hard stuff out of the way for me, is, did you go in the YouTube tab and go over to the right, because I have a couple kids that have posted a lot of videos, and go down, under settings, and then go into all the security stuff, and did you spend that 15 minutes and go over to Google or whatever your browser is and search, what does that setting mean, and then watch, oddly enough, a YouTube video that tells you what that setting means by somebody usually a lot younger. Did you spend the time? If you haven't, then do that. And I think what you'll find is that'll distill a level of complexity that right now is probably clouded, and then you'll move up a step, right? And the next time, then you'll have some interactions. You go, okay, understand the baseline. Now let me engage a more significant degree of complexity, like NFT management. Do I start meta-tagging my stuff? Do I copyright it? Am I doing the right things there? Because if I'm not, then okay, then I've made it, and then I'll move up again. And eventually, if you're going viral, you'll have people helping you do all that. You can hire us, right? Yeah. I'm probably the cheapest here, but whatever. If that helps, thank you.
For the record, the DoD budget's almost $1 trillion.
No.
I'm sure he's the cheapest.
I'm much cheaper than that. You can call me anytime.
I'm the cheapest.
But I do want to say, though, you're not at the bottom step because you just asked the question, right? So you've got at least some awareness. And that's the first step, is you got to become aware that you need to put security in place.
That's a good point.
Yeah, very good point. Well said.
Great point. Good question. One in the back.
So my question is, and it might seem a little naive, so forgive me, but everyone's like, oh, my phone's listening to me and my Alexa's listening to me and things like that. Is that something that we should be concerned about beyond saying Alexa and then beyond, obviously you say something and an ad might pop up and kind of those advertisement data, but is that something that we should be concerned about in terms of a security point of view?
You guys go first, because we actually did research. I'll finish.
Can I have an hour?
So,
Did you ever hear of Cambridge Analytica? Okay, so Facebook selling all your data, Facebook collecting audio, right? So I'm going to really try to not go on a soapbox here. But way back in the day, when iPhones first started coming out and shipping, they had the default on for GPS data always getting embedded in the metadata of photos. We did a whole CNN report on young girls taking pictures of themselves, and I can geolocate their house, right? Scary as heck. Facebook's answer to that was, oh, we're going to strip that data, so if someone mistakenly posted on Facebook, you can't find this girl anymore. Well, they didn't. They stripped it off the photo, but they saved it in their back end. And then they were selling that metadata to companies to say, if you want to market this person, you can do it at this location, right? So now think about your voice data. Pro side, right? There was somebody who actually committed a murder, and they got the evidence from an Alexa who was recording the room. And they got the a subpoena for it and got the warrant and got the Alexa data and had the auto recording of it. Negative side, that means Alexa's always recording in your room. So there's probably some things you're saying that you don't want them all to know. It's also been proven through research, and this may be what Jason talks about, that if you have Facebook installed on your phone, it is always listening. This is why you can sit here and say, I'm interested in skiing in Aspen. You know what's going to happen in 5 minutes from now? I'm going to get an ad for skiing in Aspen on my phone, because Facebook is listening and it's going to serve me up customized ads to make my user experience better.
after they get money from somebody
Yes.
in Aspen.
Yeah, so let me build on this question if I can a little bit. I'm going to start with my middle three in terms of pre-government, currently government thinkers, right? There's a big Supreme Court case going on right now with Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act. I mean, so we're getting into really policy and law kind of conversation. If you're not familiar with that, this is a Supreme Court case. It's basically going, Twitter is kind of the one that you see the most talking about in terms of allowing terrorists to tweet out messages that led to creating terrorists, and should Twitter be held liable for those people's behaviors because they posted their content on that social media platform? And it could be Facebook, it could be any social media platform as well. How do we, as the United States, a free nation that values liberty and freedom and all of the things we value, balance this tension between privacy and protection of this data and protection of our citizens in the cyber world? I mean, that's really what we're trying to get at here. Where do you think we draw those boundaries? Tim, I'll start with you, if you don't mind.
Wow.
Because you look like the most scared of this question. I'm going to give it to you.
I'll be completely honest. A couple of the things that were said, 18 years in national security, a few of the things that were said, I actually started to get a little scared over here. I'll tell you what, I'm going to answer this the best I can off the top of my head with a recent example. So everybody knows about the Chinese spy weather balloon, right? Like, I mean, you had to have lived underneath a rock not to see that. I mean, that was everywhere. So a really interesting social experiment. Like, just normal citizen now, I'm watching this play out, and I was fascinated by it. Here's why. Everybody had an issue with it because they could see it. And they were like, I don't want that up there. I don't want it watching me. I want it shot down. And it was like, okay, great. The same people that were complaining about it were posting videos to TikTok complaining about the Chinese spy balloon, who, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry, because this is just an important topic. Like, TikTok is a Chinese spy tool that you're giving access to everything on your phone. So you're giving China access to everything, and it doesn't have to be necessarily China. It could be anything. It could be Alexa and everything else. We are voluntarily, as society, giving up so much information about ourselves. But as soon as we physically see something, we get really scared. My challenge to everybody is that, like, don't make it be a drone that your neighbor flies over your backyard before you become concerned that somebody could be watching you. Because right now, the hottest topic in cybersecurity, one of the hottest topics, is IoT. It's the Internet of Things. It's because we are having so many devices within our homes, thermostats and refrigerators and baby monitors and everything else, that securing them is becoming the difficult part. So cybersecurity companies now are specializing in ways to find all of your Internet of Things that are plugged in and to secure them for yourself. So just be cognizant that every device you're bringing into your home, yes, you should be cautious, and don't wait for a news story to come out before you start taking that security seriously.
And most of those evil things are toys, by the way.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Nancy, what do you think?
It's a policy issue, and it's kind of beyond my job, first off. But, if you think of when Twitter first started or when YouTube first started, they weren't big companies that had the ability to, or the staff to just track everything that's posted on their website. So it's just kind of how do businesses grow if we put laws that make them liable? And so I'm kind of torn on the whole thing.
Yeah. So I'm going to tee you up for just a little differently here from what they said. Because we're talking about the personal privacy. This is a national security issue, though. Can you talk really to the national security vulnerabilities this policy and law affects?
Yeah, and Gary, I'm going to walk a tightrope with the policy itself, because I am sitting here in uniform, but I know everybody understands that. I'm going to give an interpretation, though. If I ask you all, don't raise your hands, but if I just ask you for a second, sorry, Gary, if you allow, just think through, what is your position on this? Do you think this is good, or do you think this is bad? Okay. My guess is it's probably down the middle. So what I get concerned about from a national security issue is now we're impatient. I'm impatient, too. And the dialogue becomes sort of visceral really rapidly. There's an assumption that it's an evil overlord to change the law or change the policy or wherever we sit in what I call the Jersey wars that sort of exist in our red or a blue state and all the things that I see it in the military. I don't want that to happen, because if that happens, I can take advantage of that. I can sow an immense amount of distrust. Inside of 16th Air Force, we work on information operations campaigns too, right? We have to do that through a significant series of approvals, because this country is good at trying to do things imperfectly, but fairly as much as it can. I know we make mistakes. But guess what? The people we're dealing with in other countries, what we would term the military pacing threats or peer threats, China in particular, Russia, these things are real. This is not saber rattling. This is not Spookyville. This is real. And they can manipulate information operations much more rapidly. They can take advantage of that distrust. And so if we're yelling at each other because we think this is unfair or if we think it's fair, they will divide us. That's where I go. One other space I go is sort of the intelligence apparatus and how we collect information from there, right? So we have to be very careful with the things we do and don't do. But here again, the right to free speech is important, right? And I'll finally give you one vignette, and I'll give the mic. Inside the military, sometimes you get in trouble for things, and we have an internal kind of legal system that follows the Constitution. It's called a Uniform Code of Military Justice. I had to issue discipline one time as a commander. When you do discipline, you do rehabilitation and some form of punishment. So it's both. Make them better, but make them understand. Member said, yeah, but you can't get me for that, sir. That was on Facebook. No different being on Facebook than it was you being out in front of my house with a T-shirt or a sign out. I saw it. What I saw is what I saw. You're not protected there. And I think we have to sort of have a little more mature dialogue about what that space is. Those would be the angles I come from, Gary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another question. All right, well, they're thinking a question. I'm going to ask a question. Hackers. I want to talk about hackers a little bit. You go on the internet and you want to get a meme for a hacker or something, you're going to get a picture of some young individual, usually a man, in a hoodie, in a dark room, doing something really bad. That actually sounds like my teenagers when they were in high school, but that's kind of our mental image of a hacker. When I say the word hacker, that's what comes to mind. Not all hackers are created equal. We teach offensive cyber in our college, which is hacking, and there's this thing called ethical hacking. Can you talk a little bit about the whole landscape of hacking, why it's good and why it's bad, and how do we navigate that so we have a better understanding of of hackers. Anybody want to start with that one?
First off, I'll just say that learning and teaching hacking is critically important to cybersecurity because, well, first off, there's a national security side to offensive capabilities that the United States needs in developing that talent. But one of the biggest areas of cybersecurity is threat hunting. And the way that you threat hunt is you need to teach somebody how to hack so that they can do it for the good purpose. And then once they find out what your vulnerabilities are, then they help you fix them. So that's where, I mean, I had a team of basically threat hunters, which are known as ethical hackers, working for the state of Arizona, and we needed them. It was really important. I'll tell you right now, shout out to the University of Arizona and Jason and everybody. They teach phenomenal skills in their program that prepare students to hit the workforce with real-world capabilities to do this type of thing. So hacking isn't necessarily a bad thing. We just want people to do it for the right reasons. And I'll just close with the fact that, yeah, a lot of times it is a teenager. I mean, one of the most important things you can do is you can go see the New York Times did a great documentary on the hackers that took down Twitter. You're talking one of the largest tech companies in the entire world was taken down by 2 teenagers. And the 2 teenagers did it through social engineering. They actually did it through a vishing scam, which is voice phishing, by basically calling all the Twitter employees and figuring out who had admin rights to the Twitter accounts. That's a very, I mean, that's like an hour documentary in 10 seconds.
Those kids have Chris's book?
Yeah.
They might have learned the skills from Chris.
I hope not.
But yeah, I mean, it's just, it's not always the anonymous mask type of a thing. And a lot of times, just be in mind, we are, a lot of times, we can make a big difference ourselves in this. A lot of times it's not hackers, it's just criminals. Criminals can just download hacking tools and then use them. Like to Jason's point, you can go through the dark web and find passwords that are already out there and then expose them. So that's not even a hacker, that's just a criminal. So you've got to be really careful.
And if you look at the history of the word hacking, it actually started in MIT in the 1960s, and it was developed as a phrase that was about people who like to take things apart, learn how they work, and then enhance them. So that was the way the term hacker came about. You were hacking things apart, understanding how it worked, and then putting it back together better than it was before. So, my growing up, the term hacker was like a badge of honor. You didn't go and destroy things. It wasn't scorched earth. It wasn't humiliating people. Now, because of media and news, every time we hear the word hacker, that's the picture we think of. And we think of all of our data and money getting stolen. But there's a very good side to being a hacker because it's that desire to want to learn how things work, why they work, and then exploit them for the purpose of fixing them.
But even at the state and DoD level, we have our own hacking teams, our red teams, our purple teams, and so forth, because the hacker needs to today's definition of the hacker, they got to find the vulnerability and fix it before the bad guy does. So,
Right, we hire, so you're in Texas, so white hat hackers and black hat hackers, and, the white being the good, the black being the bad, and we hire hackers to actually test our agencies to see if they can get in so we can fix it. So and one thing to really remember about cybersecurity, the hacker only has to be right one time to get into your system, and we have to be right 100% of the time to keep them out.
The only add I'd make to that, I think teams covered all these great topics on this. Spider-Man, great power, great responsibility, right? If he's not your favorite Avenger, find another one. But inside the DoD, we have several thousand of what I would say it is unquestionably to me the world's best hackers. It forms that formation, if you will, the world's best hackers. Nothing takes more of my time than orchestrating the boundaries of sort of control in that environment. And I could go on for a long time about that. Where I get concerned is when hackers are not in an environment that is as disciplined and as controlled. Inside of a society that is at least trying to be law-abiding to the greatest extent possible. That, to me, creates a separation. An add-on to that is I foresee, 10 years from now, hacking is going to look different. Yes, Tim's absolutely right. The Twitter story was amazing, and if you go back 25, 30 years, Kevin Mitnick was something else too, if you want to look that up if you don't know. But Tomorrow, it's different. Zero trust, cloud, big data platforms, enhanced encryption, quantum computing perhaps. Like, you're going to have to be on teams of teams, and I want them to be configured and controlled properly, not sort of a Wild West approach is where I would see it go. And that, to me, elevates the hacking game a good bit, where it becomes a bit of a profession, and then we want them on the good side.
Great question. All right, we got about 5 minutes left. Is there another question out here? Let's get one more from out in the audience. Over here.
Okay, so with the new creation, like with AI and everything, as ChatGPT comes out, where do y'all see the hacking environment going, especially using AI as a tool in hacking, both like the good and the potential bad?
If I may start, we actually have classes on exactly that, on deepfake video, audio, images, text, all of that. And we're starting to move into those. If you were in the last talk that we did, the zeros and ones are moved from kinetic or logical to persona, right? And it's the information warfare components that the Colonel talked about. And you're now using that to influence populations and to create trends and so forth. And we're now at machine speed. You know, as we mentioned before, it takes 3 seconds of audio to reproduce your voice. They can deepfake you into a video so quickly. And it's getting so sophisticated at this point that without really good forensic analysis, in some instances, some it's not that good yet, they can't tell it's fake, right? And there's no proof that it's fake. But the burden of proof in this space, in the information operations space, because we play in this space as well, it's on you to prove that wasn't you, right? And this, from a nation state, which I hope you'd comment on, you know, this is happening in business, it's happening in personal lives, it's happening in jokes after events. This kind guy put my face on somebody else's body at some point in a matter of minutes.
He's the Madonna.
But the point is that that's at machine speed now. And I think as you were driving what tomorrow is, we used to have the human, you know, in the loop, but the human's too slow. The human needs to move up on the loop and supervise the AI and the machine learning at this point and steer it. Because if you're trying to fight machine speed at human speed, you lose every single time.
No, I'm pile on real quick. I think it's a great question. For defense, I think it's paramount. Nancy said it so well. Bad guys only have to be, however you define that, only have to be right once, or we only have to be wrong once. And it's a needle in a haystack. The networks are immense. The data is immense. It's hard to get it all. The tools are great, but it requires too much think squishy. I need machines to help me at speed. So I want AI to help me do that. And I think really it's more machine learning and not AI, and certainly not AI necessarily to AIG or whatever you want to equivocate to human intelligence. That's not where I'm going. So that's first on defense. On offense, I worry about the balloon scenario. You know, if I'm a state actor and I want to disrupt Westphalian society and I want to cause chaos, how about I have an AI bot generate some stuff on cyberspace and let everybody just go to town in your social media platform blaming each other and screenshot and everything while we're disconnected and we're getting our Congress involved and doing this stuff, and meanwhile I'm building over here. It wouldn't be hard for me to do that, and you'll never figure it out, at least not for without a significant investment from your national security apparatus, which takes time. And that's time you're not spending on figuring out how to counter my missiles or whatever it may be. So that's where my mind goes with it. Thank you.
If I can end with one thing on that note, one of our senior capstone projects, one of our students built a natural language processing model, very much like ChatGPT, trained it in a weekend on a computer that was so old he had to put it up in the windowsill to keep it cool, and built a far left political bot, far right, center left, center right, and a center. Generated a whole bunch of social media postings, and then took real social media postings, put them together. The best score was 38% first time, and that was the entire social media analysis team of a government agency. The best score after multiple times actually came out of Fort Huachuca, where an entire bay of intelligence analysts spent days looking at it, and they scored 50%. That was done by a senior in a program, not a nation-state actor, not a multi-billion or trillion, closing on a $1 trillion company. This is a real threat.
All right, and on that happy note.
Sorry.
So let me close like this. You know, I do a lot of talks to different groups about what we're doing in our college and why this matters and why the University of Arizona has invested so heavily in the kinds of things we're doing. But let me leave you with this. Stories of human tragedy are as ancient as humankind. We have gone through, whether you look at religious text or great literature or modern films like Star Wars or whatever, this pitting of evil versus good is a common theme. Art works its way through this entire piece. Art helped create the internet and all of the things that are going on that we're talking about up here. What I hope you can take from this is not a holy crap, I need to throw my phone away out the door kind of a mentality. It is, there are good people, smart people, talented people committed from the federal government, from the state government, from industry, from education, who are banding together to make this a safer cyber world for all of us. And so the more we can invest in that, the more we can learn from these kinds of discussions. The fact that you're here listening to this gives me a warm feeling that you'll go out and share the news with other people and help them be more secure, listening to the people that are standing up here, because we're all in this, as we had in our last team, we're all here as one team in this battleground. So this one team that was up here before, the cyber team of teams, I really was not kidding when I said at the beginning, that includes you. We all have to be a part of this solution. So thank you for spending time with us. If you want to talk more, we will have social, there's food, there's drinks out here. We will be hanging around. Please stay and socialize in the University of Arizona's Wonder House and hang out with us. And thank you so much. How about a big round of applause for this great panel up here?